Welcome back, everyone. Alonzo Harris posts numerous comments on my channel doing everything that the Muslim apologetic echo chamber tells him to do. Criticize the Bible, make utterly incoherent claims about the meaning of Hebrew words. El Shaddai means God my breasts. This is so stupid I can only conclude that he went to the Muhammad Hijab School of Hebrew.
What Elijah in the Hebrew language means God is with us.
Anyway, Harris goes on in his comments to, you guessed it, criticize the Bible, proclaim the reliability of the Quran, say that Adam and Abraham were Muslims while accusing others of playing word games, criticize the Bible, and, get ready for the plot twist, accidentally call the Quran unreliable. While debating with someone in the comments, he said, the 124,000 prophets is not even an authentic narration. I can already dismiss you. That's like me using Pseudo-Matthew or Infancy Gospel of James to make claims about Christianity. Many of you already see the problem with that comment. You see how Alonzo Harris has called the Quran unreliable. But some of you out there are Muslim apologists, and you don't have a clue. All you know how to do is to repeat worn-out anti-Christian polemics and defend your own religion by repeating whatever else your popular-level Muslim apologists tell you to say. But I'm a nice guy, so let me help you out. Notice the description of this inauthentic narration. It can be dismissed. And as you've seen, the comment refers to the inauthenticity of Pseudo-Matthew and the Infancy Gospel of James, also called the Proto-Gospel of James. This is correct. Nobody regards them as historically reliable. But that's what makes this comment, posted by a Muslim, interesting. Because I can think of a book that uses legends, just like the ones we find in unreliable sources, but Muslims consider that book authentic. You might have heard of it. It's called the Quran. In the Quran and the Infancy Gospel of James, we find some conspicuous parallels. First, Mary was raised in the temple, called the place of prayer in the Quran. Second, Zechariah was the high priest. This is implied in the Quran, since he's the one who enters into the holy place. Third, Mary was miraculously fed during her stay in the temple. And fourth, when she moves out of the temple, her guardian is miraculously chosen by casting rods, sometimes erroneously translated as pins in the Quran. Note that Surah 344 says the Quran's messenger wasn't even there, but he still knew what happened. And this is proof of divine knowledge of the unseen. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's so fortunate that Allah was there to reveal this exclusive knowledge of the unseen. Oh wait, if Bart Ehrman's opinion matters to Muslims, and we know it does, then the Proto-Gospel of James was very widely known, the most popular of the Christian Apocrypha. It was hardly exclusive knowledge of the unseen. Of all the early Christian Apocrypha, none played a larger role in late antique and medieval theology, culture, and popular imagination than the Proto-Gospel of James. And now let's check out a video clip from Muslims' favorite Bible scholar.
The Proto-Gospel of James is about the miraculous birth and upbringing of his mother Mary. Mm-hmm. And what's driving the account is the question of why her? why would she be chosen? You know, what was so special about her? And the account tries to explain that. But then it gives a very remarkable account of Jesus' birth and what happens afterwards. This is almost entirely a legendary account. It dates from the second Christian century after the New Testament Gospels, but it was heavily influential on Christian thinking throughout the Middle Ages about Jesus' birth.
Now let's reconsider the comment. The Quran clearly adopts legends from the same stream as the Infancy Gospel of James. The Infancy Gospel of James is inauthentic and can be dismissed. The parts of the Quran that share similar material, therefore, can also be dismissed. But of course, that's not all. This comment also, conveniently for this video, references the Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew. So what's worse than shooting yourself in the foot? I guess shooting yourself in both feet. So let's go to the Quran again. Surah 19 contains a miracle involving a palm tree, which resembles a story found in, you guessed it, the Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew. This is a very well-known parallel, so you can pause the video and read these citations if you like. And yes, there are more inauthentic sources that the Quran borrows from. Let's summarize a couple of them. In an essay in Gordon Nichols' Quran commentary, Mateen Ilas comments on the parallels between Surah 19 and the Arabic Infancy Gospel, as well as Surahs 3 and 5, which resemble the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. And of course, the Quran's denial of the crucifixion can be found in numerous pre-Islamic sources, complete with substitution theories. I have just a few listed for you. So we've seen that the Quran has lots of material that parallels lots of inauthentic sources, and these are only some that apply specifically to the Quranic Jesus. The Quran uses many more inauthentic sources to construct its view of other people and events. So what should we say about the Quran and history? We can certainly agree with this assessment of the Infancy Gospel of James and the Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew, as well as the other sources we looked at. Inauthentic, dismissed, noting, of course, that the same assessment has to be extended to the respective portions of the Quran. Or if Bart Ehrman's opinion matters to Muslims, and we know it does,
would it ever be reasonable to dismiss all the evidence for a historical figure for 600 years and then only take a scripture that comes 600 years later as the most credible source, such as in the case of Jesus, where he lived and died, and then 600 years later the Quran came and told us what really happened?
No, I don't think it's not historically credible. But if you're a Muslim, then you would say that it's an act of God, and then so history isn't really what matters anymore. No, I don't think it's not historically credible. Not historically credible.
Not historically credible. Did you hear that? Not historically credible. The Quran does not give us a historically credible portrait of Jesus, and I would add a number of other people and events. What it does give us is recycled legends retold by the ear Muhammad. As the original hearers of the Quran rightly noted, no linguistic miracle. That's a later development by Muslims trying to defend the Quran. No spectacular knowledge of the unseen, just old tales that the original hearers of the Quran were not impressed with. It cannot reasonably be denied that the Quran uses inauthentic sources to construct its portrait of Jesus and a whole lot more. So, how do Muslims get around this? Typically, their response looks something like this. The Quran is true. Some pre-Islamic traditions parallel the Quran. Therefore, those pre-Islamic traditions that parallel the Quran are also true. Some may note that such a response would best be diagrammed by using a circle. Muslims, when you say your book is true, you're making a strictly theological claim. You begin with the presupposition that the Quran is true, and then use that to proclaim that the traditions it draws from are also true. But your faith isn't built on actual history. The people and events in the Quran are largely Islamicized literary constructs based in small part on the Torah and Gospel, and in large part on the legendary embellishments of them that came many centuries later. Rather than repeating cheap apologetic responses to these problems, I would encourage Muslims to consider more thoughtfully the implications these problems raise. After some consideration, perhaps at the very least, Muslims will come to realize why their belief in the Quran as divine revelation is so utterly unconvincing to thoughtful people not bound by Islamic tradition. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.